Your Imperial Highness, speaking for everyone in this room, we are so delighted that you could be with us today, that you came this morning to hear the 9 reports of our work of the last 3 days and your interest in that. Many of us are still moved by your last visit here right after the Fukushima disaster, where you described for all members of STS the importance of light and shadows and what a deep personal meaning that had to you and your country. We appreciate so much being with us today. We look very much forward to your remarks. The floor is yours, sir.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased that the 11th annual meeting of the Science and Technology in Society Forum has been successfully concluded after fruitful discussion over the past 3 days among esteemed participants from all over the world. This is the 4th time I have attended this conference since its establishment in 2004. I appreciate the significance of the lively discussion over the last 10 years on various issues related to the so-called lights and shadows of science and technology, as well as sustainability for the future of humanity. I would like to express my deep respect for all the efforts made by those dedicated to this forum. This forum covers urgent issues facing humanity, such as environmental problems, including responses to climate change, energy use, and global health. In order to cope with these issues, the international community is now required to hold multidimensional discussion on the shape of society in the future and advanced international cooperation on such important topics as building global networks and establishing rules. From this viewpoint, it becomes more important than ever for experts in various fields from all over the world to address these urgent issues by creating interdisciplinary networks. In thinking of the future of humankind, it is important to discuss the issue, including the environment, energy, food, and water from a long-term perspective, not just 20 or 30 years from now, for the sake of everyone living on our planet, beyond mere national borders. Let me express my heartfelt wish that global leaders will continue their efforts to bring their wisdom together and search for the best way to make the most of science and technology for the future of our Earth and the sustainable development of humankind. In conclusion, I would like to renew my sincere wish that this annual forum here in Kyoto will further contribute to the sound advancement of science and technology and the future of humanity. Thank you for your attention.
Your Imperial Highness, thank you so much for your comments. They are very much appreciated, and we will follow your guidance. I'm Chad Holliday, and I'm here as the chair of the National Academy of Engineering in the U.S. and a member of the STS board. I would like to build on a theme, Your Imperial Highness, that's come up and was in your talk, and that's short-term versus long-term, that we must have the balance. And that's appeared in almost every session in one way or another, that we had to balance. Let me speak today about the short term of the economy, building jobs today, versus the longer term sustainability of our planet. Many people see those as a trade-off. Do I want the economy or do I want the planet? I'd suggest to you today that may not be the answer. I've had the honor to serve on a global commission for the last 14 months, chaired by the former president of Mexico, Calderon, and vice-chaired by Lord Stern from the UK. And we were answering that one question: does it have to be short-term economy or long-term sustainability? Can we do both? I can tell you the answer to that question is it doesn't have to be. We can do both. We can grow the economy and deal with sustainability. But a question you may be asking is, what's the cost? Does it cost less to grow the economy in a sustainable way? Does it cost about the same, or does it cost more? And now there will be a test. So all those that feel it will cost less to grow the economy in a sustainable way, raise your hand. About 25%, I think. You can check me. Okay. How many thinks it'll cost about the same? Very few. How many thinks it'll cost more? More. By the way, the more are right, so congratulations. Our study showed that for the next 15 years, if we grow in a sustainable way, it will cost $93 trillion. If we grow in the way we've grown in the past, it will cost $89 trillion, so 5% more. I believe that's a very good investment in the future that goes beyond decades and into centuries. But there is a requirement for that number to come true, and that's that everybody in this room, government, academia, and industry, do our job right. Because there's a fundamental assumption in our commission's work, is that we use the science and technology effectively, we put the right legislation in place to make it successful, otherwise it will cost much more than 5%. So I must give you that disclaimer. The report that I'm referring to is called the New Climate Economy. It would be a great outcome if one year we're not talking about the industrial economy or the information economy, but we're talking about the new climate economy, which takes into account everything in this forum. I urge you to read it. I think it will be a good investment of your time, and I very recommend reading reports, because it's mostly boring. This is not boring. I think you will find it exciting. And it's also free to download, but it does take an investment in your time, which is the most precious. Let me give you 3 highlights from the report that will hopefully encourage you to take a look at it. Fossil fuels are a part of the equation for the next 15 years and beyond. We can't get around that. But there's great guidance in this report about what role coal should play, and it's less, what role natural gas should play, and how we use natural gas effectively with carbon capture and storage as a way to mitigate its climate impact. Second, we talk about how to pay for the trillions of dollars that will be required in this investment. I serve part-time at a bank, and since the financial crisis, I can assure you no one has said banks were not creative enough or took enough risk with our money and your money. But I will tell you, when it comes to advancing sustainability, we've been extremely conservative and not nearly creative enough. And that has been an impairment to growing a sustainable economy long term. I am pleased to report to you in the last 5 years that's changed drastically. Just one statistic: if you go back 5 years, an instrument called a green bond, which is a sustainability bond a corporation would issue to fund sustainability projects, there were $3 billion worldwide just 5 years ago. This year, if we stay on track, it will be $40 billion worldwide. Investors are seeing the opportunity to invest their money in sustainable projects. It's a good investment, and we're making it available to the people that need it long term. So that was described in the report, plus many other instruments that I believe have turned the tide on how we finance this in a very significant way. Last item I'd like to flag out to you is one that sometimes people say is a bit boring, but perhaps is one of the most important tools we have, and that's energy efficiency. The ability to use energy efficiency is 2 to 1 better than any other ways we can get energy going forward. And we must take this boring part and use the information technology and the industrial technology that's here to really advance it and support it, because that's critical to achieving the goals that we've set out over this period of time. So I leave you with, I hope, optimism as we leave this conference, that indeed there is a way to keep growing the economy for people's livelihoods, and there's a way to deal with sustainability on the planet, and there are concrete things we can do over the next 15 years that could change the world. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce Paul Nurse, who's the head of the Royal Society in the UK, a Nobel Prize winner, but in particular, a person with great determination, because when his flight was canceled, he said he is going to be here anyway, arrived last night because he realized how important addressing this audience is today. Paul, the floor is yours.
Your Imperial Highness, Honored Forum Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure to be here today, despite, as you've heard, the best efforts of the typhoon to prevent me coming. I want to talk today about trust in science. To ensure that science brings about a sustainable future for humankind requires public trust in the scientific endeavor, a healthy relationship between science and society that is built on trust. It requires a public at ease with science and a democracy that can cope with the complex decisions involving science. So how can we build trust in science? First, scientists need to be open and transparent, accurately describing how scientific data is gathered and making it openly available to everyone. For example, there is a pressing need to make clinical trials data publicly available so society can evaluate treatments of disease. This applies obviously to the pharmaceutical industry, but should also apply to herbal and to natural medicines. Openness requires that research supported by commercial and other organizations needs to be declared. It is also important to declare support from non-governmental, not-for-profit organizations. They may also not be entirely objective concerning science, because they too may rely on the financial support of those who have particular ideological opinions. Some environmental organizations, for example, oppose the use of GM technologies even when this is aimed at producing crops which could reduce blindness amongst the world's poorest children. Scientists have to be rigorous, honest, and skeptical. These qualities are a useful corrective when scientists feel under pressure to generate particular results. This can occur when junior scientists are pressurized by senior colleagues or by the demands of career development. This is best countered by a good culture in the scientific workplace, which abhors the falsification or distortion of data. Science is a high calling in the pursuit of truth, and that always should be remembered. Similar pressures to generate specific outcomes can come from the media or the public. Work from stem cells is a case in point. Science advances by constant testing, by eliminating unsatisfactory ideas, by correcting hypotheses. This means that sometimes a piece of research may be tentative and come to an incorrect conclusion. However, as long as that research has been carried out honestly and in good faith, such mistakes should not be a matter of shame. Ensuring trust is also a matter of how society views science. The first exposure to science that most people have is at school. It is essential for science teaching to emphasize why science is such a reliable way of generating knowledge. Understanding how science is done increases trust in science, because science can be seen to be built on reliable data, rational argument, repeated testing. If science is taught just as an assemblage of facts, without dealing with the process which gave rise to those facts, then why should pupils trust science more than fables or pseudoscience? Everyone leaving school should know the difference between astronomy and astrology, for example. The main exposure of adults to science is through the mass media. Often the reporting can be good, but is spoilt by a misleading headline. Journalists can be over-enthusiastic about what they think is just about to be discovered, which too often is still too tentative. A misplaced sense of a balanced view can distort science when prominence is given to a minority opinion which is poorly evidenced and argued. To develop trust in science, it is important that scientists are fully engaged with the public, explaining what is being done and why, what knowledge is secure and what is not secure. Only by listening to people's concerns and participating in dialogue can trust be earned. An example of when scientists were urgently needed to engage with the public was the flooding of the nuclear power plants, we've already heard, by the tsunami in Japan. Unfortunately, there are also threats to science which can undermine public trust. One problem is those politicians, columnists, commentators who distort science. They mix up science based on evidence and rationality with politics, ideology, or religion, where opinion, rhetoric, and tradition hold more sway. They cherry-pick data, distort arguments, misquote and personally attack scientists whose work they do not like. They sometimes refuse to name who finances their activities. Similar problems arise when those with fundamentalist religious beliefs distort science to support their opinions based on faith and revelation. Science is truly revolutionary, and it can lead to unsettling conclusions which attack traditional beliefs, and so can be strenuously opposed. Scientists need to engage collectively with such individuals, explaining the science and why it should be taken seriously. However, serial offenders who continue to distort science repeatedly need to be counted most robustly, because if they are not, they will undermine the whole scientific endeavor. Another threat comes from scientific contrarians who take up extreme positions, perhaps because they like the attention that can attract. Sometimes they argue their extreme view should be respected because they are taking a skeptical stance. But such scientists often miss an important aspect of skepticism. Scientists should be especially skeptical about their own ideas and hypotheses. People throughout the world need to recognize the value of science and recognize how it can contribute to our culture, to our civilization, to our wealth, to the quality of our lives, to our health, to improving the lot of the poorest in the world. But for science to reach its full potential in bringing sustainable benefit to humankind, we must build trust in science by properly training our scientists and by encouraging them to fully engage with the public. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nurse, thank you very much. That was just great guidance for everyone in this room. Our next speaker is Minister of Science and Technology, Pandor, from South Africa. She previously served as a Minister of Education, but I would like to highlight two things, and that's her courage in this session. I've had the chance to be in 3 sessions with you, and you always ask the tough questions that brings the balance of light and shadows every time. And she brings the leadership as a role model for women in this conference, and we value that very much also. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for that very kind introduction. His Imperial Highness, it's indeed an honor to be here with you. Chairperson Omi, Chairperson of the Forum, I'm sure only the Chairman will understand when I say that I have been missing being with you, having been thrown into the wilderness by the reshuffle of our government 2 years ago. So it is indeed a pleasure to be back. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the Chairperson for having invited me to be part of this closing session of this wonderful Science and Technology and Society Forum. Our country has participated in the forum since its inception, and we found it of immense value in helping us think about new ways in which to steer our science and technology system. In deciding on how to promote science and technology, we've attempted to draw on the important lessons from the growth and development of Japan. We have learned that what made a national innovation strong was attention to three important areas that the experience of Japan has highlighted: a strong annual growth in funding basic research, a strong university-industry partnership, and a strong protection of intellectual property rights, especially in the risky frontier fields. We've also attempted to focus on these three areas. Our funding of basic research has risen sharply each year over the past decade. Our universities are no longer ivory towers, remote from industry and community, but linked closely into urgent national priorities. They are critical in sustaining in-depth linkages to global knowledge resources and committed to nation building through the ownership of knowledge production and use. We are transforming our intellectual property laws to promote and protect our research, innovation, and indigenous knowledge systems. We regard science and technology as fundamental to solving the difficult questions to do with sustainable economic growth, rural poverty, the built environment, health, and education. We're investing in our higher education institutions to enhance their research capability in the global challenge areas of climate change, biodiversity, and food security. There are three main comments I would like to briefly share with you this afternoon. Firstly, I believe we need to understand the nature of the rapid changes, geopolitically, scientifically, and societal, which are shaping all aspects of our world in the 21st century. Our world is changing more rapidly than ever before. Not least among these changes are the greater interconnectivity and ease of travel between countries and continents, which means developments such as disease outbreaks in one region rapidly spread to another. Simply put, our problems are also our neighbors' problems. Ebola has presented us with a global challenge. HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis are on the rise in regions previously considered safe from this disease burden, whilst non-communicable, including lifestyle diseases, now have a devastating impact in the developing world. More than ever, we need greater global solidarity, especially, and this is perhaps the most pressing societal challenge of our time, we need to confront the rising, unacceptable, and very dangerous inequalities that we face in our world. These impact on all aspects of our society. Nowhere is this more evident than in the huge discrepancies we all face in regard to affordable health care. One day, we may need to have a session in which we discuss the cost of healthcare and not just innovation in healthcare. Second, I believe we must leverage the new prominence science, technology, and innovations interface with societal challenges and the prominence that this interface enjoys in global political discourse. It is not only the nature of our challenges which are changing, but also the actors involved in responding to them. In research and innovation, the role of non-state actors, such as multinational companies have become essential, informing the need for new and innovative models of public-private partnerships. State actors, too, are changing. Emerging economies have stepped up their investment in research and innovation, and we see new South-South alliances which offer new options for international cooperation. As we seek to understand and respond to these changes, it's comforting to know that the role of science, technology, and innovation as instruments for sustainable development, including instruments in improving the quality of lives of our citizens, is featuring prominently on the political agenda of all governments in the world. Third, we believe we have a responsibility to develop new partnership modalities for international research and innovation. If we are to effectively respond to the opportunities and challenges of sustainable development, we cannot avoid collaboration. And if you are doing your work and you do not have partners throughout the world, your intervention is inadequate. Consistent with the global dynamic of intensified regional political and economic integration, we believe regional cooperation in science and technology has to be intensified, particularly to address policy priorities such as public health and food security, which, due to the interconnectedness between countries, are best addressed at a regional level. We believe international partnerships must be co-owned and co-determined by all the constituent parties to the relationship. The time of the traditional North-South donor-recipient paradigm has long passed. Developing countries today are at the forefront, many of them, of global scientific discovery, as highlighted by several examples that have been referred to in this conference and highlighted in pioneering work being undertaken in my own country, South Africa, in areas such as microbicides to prevent HIV/AIDS infection among women, as well as drugs and vaccine development for malaria and tuberculosis. I'd like in this connection to turn to the Square Kilometre Array, probably the most exciting global science project for the 21st century, which will be proudly hosted by ourselves, an African country, South Africa. The construction of the meerkat, the precursor, which is South African designed and is a precursor to the full Square Kilometre Array, is well on track. It's the first time through this global initiative that we will have large global scientific infrastructure located on the African continent. And this is a major advance for the world. We are excited at the participation and partnership we enjoy with the world's scientific community as we complete the precursor instrument, the meerkat, which will be a 64-dish radio telescope ready for science in 2016. It will be a powerful instrument in its own right. Investments in instruments such as these have begun to attract some of the world's leading astronomers, and we understand the distinction in South Africa between astronomy and astrology, Professor Nurse. Many scientists are taking up full-time positions at South African universities. South African scientists who are part of our SKA program recently won acclaim in the prestigious journal Nature for a new discovery of a black hole. The world sat up and took notice. This global project is progressing extremely well. We're not only South Africa and excited about the SKA, we're a consortium of global partners. India recently joined the governing council, and we're hoping many more countries will join this enterprise. We hope to have an international treaty organization ready in the next year, as this is a project of global significance, similar in character to that of the renowned CERN organization in Geneva. And we are proud as Africa to be custodians of this immense project. Our partnership with 8 other African countries is also one that excites us. These countries will host remote stations of the square kilometer array and are participating fully in its construction and in the construction of radio observatory sites in each of the 8 African partner countries. This then brings me to science, technology, and innovation in Africa. We recognize that we need to be part of a vibrant African research and innovation system. So we look for international cooperation to support science and technology capacity building elsewhere in Africa. For this goal, we seek to leverage our comprehensive portfolio of international relations and are keen to partner with Asian, American, or European nations in reinforcing African capacities. We'll also be a champion for the recently adopted African Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy 2030. We believe that STISA will focus Africa's science, technology, and innovation investment in a number of key socioeconomic benefit areas. One is eradicating hunger and ensuring food security. 2, preventing and controlling disease and ensuring human welfare in Africa. 3, improving intra-African communication through investing in physical and digital infrastructure. 4, protecting Africa's natural resources. 5, building African communities, addressing aspects such as democratization, urbanization, and conflict resolution. And 6, creating wealth for Africa. Science is at the heart of this Agenda 2030 for Africa. Our world, ladies and gentlemen, is ever more fragile as we struggle with climate change and sustainability. But we believe if we have the political will, we have a real opportunity to make a difference in science and technology. In conclusion, therefore, our response to the question of what should be done is we must use the immense capabilities gathered here to make a real difference for all humanity. It may very well be a useful idea to theme one of our next forum meetings, making a difference to humanity, and prioritize science and technology that contributes to altering lives and societies without first looking for profits. If we were to ask participants at a forum in the future to only stand up if what they have to say is that which has made a difference to humanity, I believe we'd have a most interesting forum. Once more, my thanks to Omi-san for the wonderful opportunity to be a part of this great forum. Thank you very much.
Madam Minister, I think you've given us our theme. Making a difference is what we're about, and the way you balance the most basic needs with leadership in science in your country is absolutely fabulous. We all know there is one reason we are here today, and that's because one human being who could have easily been retired doing many different things decided to dedicate his experiences and his rest of his life, which we hope is a long, long time, to taking the lights and shadows in science and technology and bringing us together in this unique forum, which is not duplicated anywhere in the world, is so important. Will you please join me with a very warm welcome to our chairman, Omi.
Your Imperial Highness, the Crown Prince, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as founder and chairman of the STS Forum, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation to all of you for your great contributions in making the 11th meeting of the Forum very successful. It is also our great honor to have had the Crown Prince address us today. The STS Forum has begun its second decade, and it has grown from a mere conference into a movement for global leaders to address science and technology-related issues for future generations. We'll continue building on and broadening our platform for leaders in different fields from all over the world to achieve and maintain sustainable development for humanity's future. To expand the contribution of STS Forum, we should discuss the issues we face today with greater passion in order to strengthen the light and control the shadows of science and technology. The statement distributed to you, which was agreed upon by Council members, describes the broad outline of our discussion at this meeting. Some of the major points are as follows. Concerning energy, the shale gas and oil revolution has inaugurated a new phase in the world's energy sources. We must recognize that any future energy supply should include a wide range of options. Nuclear power will continue to play an important role for the future under strict conditions of safety, security, and non-proliferation. We should note that IPS cells have high potential to generate breakthrough technology for cures. It is urgent to strengthen the global community's capacity for dealing with infectious diseases, including Ebola fever. In a rapidly changing ICT environment, ensuring security and privacy is vital for the future of humankind. A global-level consensus is needed to establish universal ICT rules. Collaboration among academia, industry, and government is essential for stimulating economy and social vitality. Chief technology officers provide a solid consensus between academia, business community, and this role should be emphasized. Ladies and gentlemen, up to the 20th century, we believed that the Earth was infinite, but now we have come to realize that Earth is finite for the activities of humankind. Achieving economic growth and preserving the environment at the same time on a global scale have become critically important. The need for consensus on specific measures to reduce CO2 emission is urgent. We must protect the environment and ensure sufficient energy, food, and other resources for future generations. At the same time, we should not forget that humankind is also part of nature, and we should live in harmony with nature. Participants at this forum, whatever their position or nationality, have talked about their shared concerns as members of humankind to achieve sustainability and innovation. Thanks to your contribution, the STS Forum has begun to make visible achievement in the world. I hope that participants will spread the message through their own networks so that our movement can become even more influential. I also intend to expand the forum's activities by holding workshops in major cities such as Beijing, Berlin, and Kuala Lumpur. in order to acquaint a broader circle of the people with the fundamental concept of the STS Forum. Let me announce that our next annual meeting will be held here in Kyoto from Sunday, October 4th to Tuesday, October 6th, 2015. I look forward to all of us gathering here again in order to pave the way for the future generation. Thank you.
Chairman Omi, thank you for the very clear direction. Imperial Highness, this has been such an honor for you to be with us today. We appreciate it very much and hope to see you back very soon. Thank you.